The night, everything changed. The sharp crack of a tire skidding on wet asphalt pierced the quiet night. A lone black motorcycle came roaring down Main Street, its headlight cutting through the fog like a searching eye. The rider leaned low, the roar echoing off the closed diner windows and empty sidewalks. Inside the small diner, Maria wiped down the counter, the hum of the old jukebox playing soft country tunes. It was late, and business had been slow. The townsfolk had long since gone home, leaving Maria alone with her thoughts, and the warm glow of the neon sign flickering outside. Suddenly, the diner's bell jingled loudly, and Maria looked up. The motorcycle pulled up just outside the door, engine still growling. The rider swung off the bike, revealing a tall man with a heavy leather jacket covered in patches, the unmistakable marks of a Hell's Angel. Maria's breath caught. Stories about the biker gang always filled the local bar, whispered in uneasy tones. But here, in her quiet diner, in this small town that rarely saw visitors, this man was suddenly real, standing in front of her. His face was rough, weathered by years on the road, but his eyes held something softer, a flicker of pain or maybe fear. He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, the smell of smoke and gasoline following him. "Need some help?" Maria asked, her voice steady despite the surprise. The biker nodded, his jaw tight. "Trouble with the cops. Need a place to lay low for a bit." Maria hesitated only a moment before nodding. In her heart, she knew this night was about to change. Everything. The man slid into a booth near the window, pulling his jacket tight against the chill that had crept in with the night. Maria brought over a cup of coffee and set it down without a word. The diner felt unusually quiet, the usual warmth replaced by a heavy tension. Minutes passed. The biker stared out the window, watching shadows move on the deserted street. Then, footsteps echoed outside, slow, cautious but determined. Maria's eyes darted to the door. Suddenly the door burst open and two police officers stepped inside, their badges gleaming under the flickering diner light. "We're looking for a man matching that description," one officer said, nodding toward the biker. "He's wanted for questioning." Maria's heart pounded. She looked at the biker, who gave her a quick, grateful glance. "You can't let them take me," he whispered. Maria's mind raced. She had no idea who this man really was, or what he'd done, but something inside her refused to back down. "No one's going anywhere," she said firmly. "You want to talk? You talk to me first." Outside, the motorcycle's engine idled softly, a promise of escape. But inside the diner, Maria's stand against the police had set off a chain reaction. Within hours, word spread like wildfire. The quiet diner where a black woman had dared to defend a Hell's Angel from the police. The next morning, the town woke to an unexpected sight. Hundreds of motorcycles roaring down Main Street, a sea of leather and chrome flooding the streets. 200 bikers had come to the diner, their presence impossible to ignore. Maria stood behind the counter, overwhelmed but resolute. She didn't understand the full story yet, but one thing was clear: her life and her town would never be the same. As the sun rose, questions filled the air. Who was this man? What was his story? And why had Maria risked everything to protect him? The answers would come, but not before the town faced a mystery it wasn't prepared for. A story of survival, loyalty, and unexpected alliances. Secrets. Under the surface, the roar of engines still echoed in Maria's ears as she locked up the diner late that night. The flood of bikers that had poured into town hours earlier had been overwhelming. 200 strong, a force of leather and chrome, riding for one man, one cause. Maria still didn't know his name. She remembered the way he had looked at her that night, eyes filled with something deeper than anger or fear. A weight she couldn't explain. Her hands trembled as she wiped down the counter, the smell of motor oil lingering in the air. The town had changed overnight. Word spread quickly in small towns, faster than wildfire in dry grass. The story of a black woman standing up for a biker, defying police, made headlines in the neighboring cities. News vans arrived, reporters asking questions Maria didn't have answers for. But Maria wasn't ready to be in the spotlight. Her small diner, once a quiet stop for locals and travelers, was now the center of a mystery that had no clear solution. Who was the man she helped? Why was the biker hunted? And what did all this mean for the peaceful town she had always called home? Meanwhile, the biker, whose name was revealed to be Jack, stayed mostly silent, hidden in the back room of a friend's garage at the edge of town. Jack wasn't just any biker. His past was tangled with danger, secrets, and a story that could tear the town apart. Maria felt drawn to him, to his quiet strength, but also to the vulnerability he tried to hide. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Maria found herself standing outside the garage. The hum of the town was fading, replaced by a heavy silence. Jack stepped out, wiping grease from his hands. His eyes met hers, no longer the hardened look of a man running, but something more open, raw. "There's more to this than you know," he said quietly, "and it's about to get worse." Over the next few days, Maria learned pieces of Jack's story, whispered truths, hidden threats, and the kind of mystery that wasn't easy to solve. Jack had once been part of the biker world's roughest circles, but something had made him break away. He had seen things that forced him to run, to hide, yet in helping him, Maria realized she had stepped into a dangerous game. The police were not just after Jack for a small mistake. There were bigger forces at work, people who didn't want the truth to come out. Late one night, a stranger arrived in town, a woman with sharp eyes and a cold smile. She asked questions, moved like a shadow, and watched Maria closely. Maria's instincts screamed danger. She knew she had to protect Jack, but also herself. The walls of safety she had built around her quiet life were crumbling. Then, just when Maria thought she could catch a breath, the phone rang. Jack answered. His face went pale. "They found something," he said, voice shaking. "Something that changes everything." Maria didn't need to ask what. The mystery was deepening, the stakes rising higher. As dawn broke over the town, Maria stood at the diner window, watching the empty street. Her heart raced. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but one thing was certain. She was no longer just a bystander. She was part of a story bigger than she ever imagined. Shadows close. In the early morning, fog settled over the town like a thick blanket, hiding secrets just beneath its cold surface. Maria's diner sat silent, bathed in pale light as the world around it began to stir, but Maria didn't see the sunrise. Her thoughts were tangled with the phone call she had overheard the night before, the one that had shaken Jack to his core. "They found something," Jack had said, but the fear in his voice told her it was more than just an object. It was a truth that could unravel everything. Maria's mind raced as she sipped the first cup of coffee she'd managed to make. What could it be? A clue? A weapon? Or something darker? Something that could destroy not just Jack, but everyone tied to him, including herself. She pushed the questions aside for now. The diner's bell jingled, and she looked up. The stranger woman from the other night had returned, stepping inside with a cold, calculating gaze. Maria's heart clenched. "What do you want?" Maria asked, steady despite the tension. The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm here for answers," she said simply. Maria didn't know it yet, but this woman was the key to the shadows closing in on them all. Jack appeared moments later, stepping through the diner's door like a storm waiting to break. His eyes were dark, but there was a fire burning behind them. "We don't have much time," he said, voice low. "They're coming." Maria swallowed hard, trying to steady herself. Who? The police or someone else? Jack shook his head. Someone worse. The stranger watched silently, her presence a reminder of the danger lurking just out of sight. She introduced herself as Elena, a private investigator with a history tied to Jack's past, and a warning for Maria. "You don't know everything about Jack," Elena said. "He's not just running from the law. He's running from people who want to silence him forever." Maria's heart pounded. She looked at Jack, searching for the truth hidden behind his guarded eyes. As the day turned into evening, Jack opened up for the first time. He told Maria about the secret he'd uncovered, a web of corruption reaching far beyond their town. People in power, hiding crimes no one dared to speak of. "And I was their target," Jack said quietly. "Because I knew too much." Maria's head spun. She had stepped into a world far darker than she imagined. That night, the town held its breath. Strange noises echoed through the streets, shadows moving where no one should be. Maria locked the diner's doors, her hands trembling. Suddenly a loud crash shattered the silence. The back window had been broken. Maria's heart leapt as she saw figures disappearing into the darkness. Someone had been inside. The next morning, the police arrived, their questions sharp and probing. Maria realized the danger wasn't just from outside. Some in the town might be involved too. Jack's secret was a powder keg, ready to explode. As part 3 ended, Maria stood on the diner's porch, watching the rising sun cut through the fog. She knew the road ahead was filled with shadows, but she wasn't turning back. She had a choice. Run away and hide, or face the darkness head-on. The mystery was far from over, and the town wasn't ready for what was coming next. The truth that changed everything. The sun rose slowly over the town, but Maria felt the weight of the night pressing down on her. She hadn't slept. The broken window, the unanswered questions, the threat lingering in every shadow. It all made her skin crawl. Jack sat across from her in the diner's back booth, eyes tired but steady. Eleanor had left early that morning, promising to dig deeper into the secrets that surrounded them. "I don't know how much longer we can hold this," Jack said quietly. "They're closing in." Maria reached out, placing her hand on his. "We won't let them win, not here." The next few days were a whirlwind. Maria found herself caught between two worlds. The everyday routine of serving coffee and pie, and the dangerous game unfolding in her town. More bikers arrived, quiet and watchful, standing guard around the diner. The townsfolk whispered, some afraid, some angry. Rumors flew like wildfire. Jack and Elena worked behind the scenes, gathering evidence, contacting allies. Maria, despite her fear, became their unexpected anchor. She listened, learned, and found strength she never knew she had. One evening, as a thunderstorm rumbled in the distance, Eleanor returned with news. "We found the files," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "Documents that prove everything, corruption, cover-ups, even murders." Maria's hands trembled as she flipped through the papers. Names, dates, places, the town's trusted leaders were implicated. Jack's jaw tightened. This is what they wanted to hide. But the danger was no longer just hidden in shadows. That very night, the diner was surrounded by black SUVs. Armed men stepped out, faces masked, moving like a storm to silence them. Maria's heart pounded as she grabbed Jack's arm. "We have to get out, now." They slipped through the back door into the pouring rain, the thunder masking the sound of their escape. The chase was brutal. Through empty streets, past dark alleys, Maria felt the raw edge of fear and adrenaline. She wasn't sure how they survived, but they did, disappearing into the safety of the nearby woods. For hours, they waited in silence, soaked and exhausted. At dawn, Elena appeared again, her face grim. "They know what we have now," she said. "This isn't just about hiding the truth anymore. They want to destroy it." Maria looked at Jack, the man who had come into her life like a storm, rough around the edges but fiercely loyal. "We have to fight," she said, voice steady. Jack nodded. Together. The next days were a battle not just for survival, but for justice. With the evidence Elena had uncovered, they contacted journalists, activists, anyone who would listen. The story exploded, shaking the foundations of the town's corrupt power. The police chief was arrested. Officials resigned. A wave of change swept through the community, but it wasn't easy. There were threats, betrayals, moments when hope seemed to flicker and die. Maria faced her own fears, of losing everything she had, of standing up to a world that wanted her silent. Yet, through it all, she found something stronger than fear. Courage. In the quiet moments after the storm, Maria stood outside her diner, watching the sun rise over a town slowly healing. Jack was beside her, no longer just a stranger or a biker on the run, but a man who had trusted her with his truth. She smiled softly. "We did it." Jack looked out at the horizon. "This is just the beginning." The lesson Maria learned was clear. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to stand up, even when the world is against you. To help someone in need is to change not just their story, but your own. And in that act of courage, even the darkest shadows can be broken. The end.